Hi guys, Mr. Waffles here. This video is gonna go in a really weird direction, man. So sit back, relax, grab some popcorn, and get ready to go on basically like an Easter egg hunt, wild goose chase, except we're kind of crossing over into real life a bit with this one. It's gonna be weird. So it all started when the Toaster Waffle tweeted me and said, Milo, I've uploaded a video literally just for you about something that I have found in Alpha Omega. I clicked the video and Toaster Waffle had found that there's actually some secret audio which is reversed in the map. So you have to record it and then manually reverse it yourself and play it back in order to be able to hear what's happening. The source of the audio, you won't be surprised to hear, is the truck near the yellow Nuketown bus. And this truck has been suspicious, I would say, since day one because the lights are flashing on it. A lot of people were questioning whether that was Morse code or not. I've checked, guys. I'll talk about that in just a second. And the sound it plays also sounds like it's tuning through different radio frequencies with little tiny snippets of audio coming out from different radio stations, but you can't really hear anything coherent in it until, as Toaster Waffle found, you reverse it and then you are able to hear a message. Let's quickly talk first though about the potential for Morse code on the truck's headlights. They're flashing fairly regularly, and unlike some areas of maps where people tell me to go and check for Morse code and it's just very clearly not Morse, like the pattern is just wrong for Morse, this pattern on the lights looks pretty good. It looks fairly good. And what I mean by that is that it is translatable. You have to basically establish your own sort of rules for what a long or short press might be in the kind of language of Morse code, but you can at least get something. And I did like a 30-second translation. This is what I got. So I don't think that there is actually a message in here personally. At first I was thinking, oh man, is it going to spell like electric or something, like electric entity? That could be really cool. But as far as I can tell, it's random flashing that is on a repeated sequence, and the other letters that aren't repeated in here are basically from human error in decoding it and in the kind of ambiguity of making your own timing system to fit these blinking lights to the Morse code framework. So that I didn't think was necessarily going to be anything of note, but this audio is. So let me play it for you now and you can have a listen to it.
Forget it. At this point.
The voice clearly says, Roger, can I have your next position after 170 east? And then there's a response. It's 43 north, 180 east, and they say, and Roger, stand by, and that's basically all of the message that's actually audible. Now, the rest of the garbled, jumbled audio from the truck, I haven't been able to figure out any message from. But if you guys have any luck with this, then definitely let me know in the comments down below. One thing I want to say before I explain why I think this is interesting in the first place is that Treyarch often have little weird noises in their maps. It's nothing new, okay? But what they don't often have is actual recognizable audio that can be reversed or can be basically unjumbled from the kind of messy version of whatever they provide in the game itself. There's always whispers and there's always little bits of weird talking and weird radio things, but it's definitely less common for there to be actual sentences and a conversation happening. And as such, I just want to say to you guys, if you see anywhere else in the map this sort of thing happening, like this sort of weird messaging coming through on a radio or something, let me know about it. Let's keep our eyes peeled for stuff like this, guys. Because remember, it took until just about 3 weeks ago for the community to find the note about Rushmore and about Camp Edward, which literally teased this entire DLC in Classified, and it's been there since launch. So we kind of slipped almost on that. And if there are weird audio quotes and weird audio messages and things like that in this map, let's definitely try and find them now so that we're ready for whatever's going to be coming up in DLC 4. Anyway, 43 North, 180 East, and 170 East. What does that mean? Well, the first thing that I thought when I heard this was actually back to that one Die Rise radio. I'm just going to play it for you now because it is related to Broken Arrow, which I thought was quite interesting as a link.
Redcon 5, this is Saber Arrow. Our sweep failed to find any evidence of survivors on site. Broken Arrow is not viable for new FOB. That's negative, sir. Records appear to have been destroyed in a fire prior to the facility being overrun. Sir, we believe staff may have been trying to destroy evidence implicating them in the outbreak. Understood, sir. Confirmed drop at T-5. Retreating to safe distance.
So hopefully you can agree that there is a similar vibe between these, but it's a tenuous link at best. Is there any potential other link that we can make to the zombie's story that specifically refers to these coordinates? Well, it turns out, yes there is. Treating these as basically a standard latitude and longitude, 170 East and even more so 180 East are basically halfway around the world from your origin position. That makes sense obviously because 180 half of 360, right? Because of this, 180 East is actually known as the anti-meridian because it's both 180 East and also 180 West. It's equidistant from that prime meridian. If we take a look at it on a map, you can see that it mostly passes over water in the Pacific Ocean, but it also does cover some ground in Russia, Fiji, and Antarctica. It's this meridian, this line, if you will, that is used as the basis for the international date line, which means that as you cross over this line, your local date where you presently are changes because of the fact that your time difference was going all the way up on one side, and then you flip over to all the way down on the other side. The trajectory of whatever is traveling along this path can kind of be roughly tracked by us using Google Maps or some other service. If we assume that they're staying at 43 North and just going from 170 to 180 East, then you can see that this is roughly where they're flying to, assuming that they're flying. I mean, they could, I guess, be sailing as well, but they're probably flying here. This shows us that they're really in the middle of nowhere. This is kind of a weird place to be airborne. This is something I actually have some evidence for as well. I'm not just pulling that out of nowhere. So if we look at all of the currently airborne flights on planet Earth, which sounds wild, but yes, it's actually possible, as you can see here, you can see that there's a huge amount of density over the United States. There's a huge amount of density in Europe. Obviously, these are things that you would expect. Quite a bit around Cuba, quite a bit in Mexico. And if we take a look at our area of interest, you can see that there's a little bit of activity going from Japan to the United States, and also quite a bit going from the United States to Hawaii. However, if we line this up with where our rough estimate is of the trajectory of this message, you can see that they don't really match up. It seems to me, at least, like this flight is going in a bit of a weird direction. And so I got to thinking, aside from that Die Rise radio, like I said, what else can we link this to? The options we basically have to look for are the Pacific Ocean itself, and then Russia and a little bit of Fiji and Antarctica. Those of you with really good memories might remember that during Black Ops 3, both the Pacific and Russia were mentioned at the exact same time. The third reporter phone call in Shadows of Evil says the following.
Hey, Mr. Rapt. So I tracked down all the people you asked me to look into. I sent you a telegram with all their details, all their contact numbers. It's not that I'm ungrateful. I know the checks you've given me have been more than generous for services rendered. It's just all this stuff you've had me do. Tracking down ancient artifacts in the South Pacific, finding all these strange metals and rocks in Russia. And still, I haven't even met you face to face. I'm sorry, Mr. Rapt. I think maybe the mood in the city is getting to me a little. Making me nervous. Antsy. Anyway, I'm looking forward to you finally getting here.
Okay, so clearly the reporter is not very happy there at all, but the relevant info is that they had to track down ancient artifacts in the South Pacific and find strange metals and rocks in Russia. This was then followed up months and months later in Revelations. We got another mention of this, which is interesting because in Revelations, Treyarch were really laying the foundational work for Black Ops 4, and this is the mention that we got of these two locations.
Anyway, no clue why Mr. Rapp wanted me to meet this Stanley first, but I'm headed to the city now. Something about tracking down 3 doozies and a floozy. Oh yeah, not to mention those artifacts in the South Pacific and Russia. I don't know what that's about. I never even met this guy. Likes to stay to the shadows. Real weirdo. But the money's good.
Red line departing for the waterfront district.
Maybe it'll all make sense when I get there.
So, the plot is kind of thickening here, I think you can agree. The timeline tells us that it's specifically on October the 21st, 1943, that the Shadow Man, posing as Mr. Rapt, hires the reporter to recover these artifacts. Then, on the 14th of December in the same year, the reporter actually recovers the artifacts from the South Pacific and Russia, and one of those artifacts is the summoning key. So for whatever reason, somewhere in this mysterious South Pacific area, the summoning key is just hanging out. We don't really know why it was there. We don't know its origin story. We don't know any of its history. Certainly in terms of recent time, we know some of the really old stuff with the keepers, etc., but the present day stuff is much more ambiguous. And the rocks and strange metals in Russia, that's something that in the story got mentioned and then seemingly kind of went nowhere. It was a bit of a mystery. However, strange metals in Russia, you could make a little bit of a link and say, well, maybe they're talking about some weird kind of golden rod type thing. There could be like a Call of the Dead-y type link there almost. But making a link here to Call of the Dead would probably be a discussion for another video. Now, it's worth pausing here and noting that if the reporter was going from Russia straight to the South Pacific, or something like that at least, this trajectory wouldn't really make much sense for them. They would be going far too much east rather than going south as they would need to do. That said, I can't think of any other link to make between these sorts of coordinates and anything at all in the zombie story. So if this isn't the direction that Treyarch are meaning for us to take this in, then I think that the other most likely theory is that they basically took a generic bit of radio from somewhere else and reversed it in the hopes that we wouldn't notice it, but that it would sound cool. That is absolutely possible. Don't get me wrong. Some of you might even recognize this audio from somewhere else in the game. I know that, for example, in Revelations, that truck makes a lot of weird noise, and there's been stuff like that in zombies over the years, like I've said, and so it might be that they're just reusing a sound effect here, but at the same time, this is Treyarch we're talking about. They're going to be expecting us to dig into this sort of thing, and so if they have messed up and just reused some audio, then it's a bit of a blunder on their part, because they should have known better. They should have known that we would dig into this as much as possible. So, guys, what do you think? Is this a Shadows of Evil Easter egg? A summoning key Easter egg? A hint towards the fact maybe that we're going to learn a little bit more about the origins of the summoning key for some reason at some point? Or do you think that this gives you stronger vibes in the Die Rise direction and their links with Broken Arrow, which would be a much more direct connection because of the fact that Broken Arrow obviously run Camp Edward. It is their facility. Or do you think this is just a coincidence? It's nothing. It's nonsense. It's some reused quote or something like that. All of these are options, honestly. This is really an open-ended one, but I got the original heads up about this from the Toaster Waffle. Thank you so much. When you guys find stuff in game and you just tweet me directly about it and you say, hey, I found this new thing, it's super awesome because it means that I can signal boost stuff and get the community talking about them. And so when I saw that message, I was like, yo, hold on. Is there actually something here? Could we actually do some digging? And hopefully it's been enjoyable digging and will kind of get you guys thinking about potential other little leads that might be hidden inside Alpha Omega. Thank you so much for watching. I've been Mr. Waffles. If you're looking forward to DLC 4, then why not check out some of my Great War posters, which we finally are one step closer towards the finished design for. Link in the description down below. I think it's looking awesome. And I'll catch you guys again in another Zombies video very soon. Bye for now.